of the police in my hood.
All right, folks. Yeah, sorry we're a little late trying to get everything situated and coordinated. This is a new program for a lot of folks, so trying to get past all the technical issues. It's a little bit more than we expected, but not too much. We got it. We got it working, so don't worry. So, with that being said, we got some fun stuff for y'all tonight. We have, as you see, an entire cast of folks. In fact, there's so many folks here you can't even see them all right now because we haven't arranged any of the cards because there's so many. But that's good. That's good because you're going to get a good conversation. Fortunately, folks, Scholar Fiction could not join us today. He had some real life stuff to take care of. So we're going to have a good old discussion on the Second Amendment. But before we get into that, we're going to just discuss some things that have been going on recently, a little bit of Kavanaugh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, just to kind of get everything situated. Definitely not to stall them to get everything, fitted in the screen so you can see everyone. Definitely not. But so today, or tonight rather, we have myself, we got Emperor, we got Nate, but we're joined by Mr. Potato Head. Oh, no, that's Immutable Destiny. Terrible depiction of the one of the highway rapists back in the 70s, Crimson. We have Xavier, which this is the Baytown Mexican. We got good old Slim Jim, who's been MIA for a while, and whoever else may or may not pop up. That's probably going to be it, but y'all are in for a treat. So, what's that, Imp?
What did you guys think about the Kavanaugh hearings? Because I don't know. I feel like at first when she was up there and she's telling her story, I believed her. But then when he came up and he was like, "Yo, that's just not me," straight up. Like I like the realness that came through. I kind of felt like, yeah, if I was being falsely accused, I would feel the same way too. Like, come on, this is a sham.
I mean, he might have been telling the truth in some instances. I mean, that's just like, you remember the Nita Hill, Clarence Thomas thing back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not that I'm a big fan of Clarence Thomas. I think he sucks. But Nita Hill, she sounded good, too. And basically, I think she was lying. So this might be the same thing. I don't know. But it's a lot of other stuff in Kavanaugh as far as other scripts, man, where he probably shouldn't be voted in, besides this incident with this particular woman. I don't know, man.
Well, I don't know. I kind of think it's, of course, I think it's a big deal if this is somebody who's almost raped a woman. You're trying to vote on the Supreme Court. At what level, or this is a job interview. Even though I have heard some people say just because he was 17, this is what boys did. But I don't know. If you told me on a job interview that my babysitter, almost raped somebody a couple of years back, or 30 years back, it's less likely I'm going to, invite that person to be my babysitter. So this is a job interview type scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that didn't stop Bill Clinton from being voted in. He had all type of rape allegations against him too, though. So
yeah, that's what it is.
Nobody paid attention to those females. They just kind of hushed them up a little bit. So.
I think it's the goose. What is it? The what goes around comes around. The fucking Democrats were saying that. I forgot Bill Clinton had a lot of rape allegations against him.
Well, he had well, I can say a lot. He had like 4.
That's not a lot. Well, I thought more than one was a lot. You like
no, that's not. No, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. A lot is Bill Cosby. A lot is Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby is
insane,
a lot.
but I'm talking about 4 rape allegations is a lot. Like Bill
Harvey
Cosby,
Harvey
insane.
Weinstein is a lot.
Yeah.
4 or 5 is pretty good for old Bill. I would have to say 4 or 5 pretty good.
That's the well. How many rape allegations you got to get to okay to good to goddamn? Like it's
Right.
what metric?
Yeah, how many does Trump got against him? Trump got like a whole bunch against him right now.
Does he? Not rape.
Not rape allegations, but like some sexual assaults. Not rapes though. Yeah, but he got like 14 women say they've been either harassed or assaulted by the president.
Trump grabbed him by the pussy, so it's okay.
He admitted that too, right?
Yeah, he said that. Like he says, I do sexually assault women, essentially. So it's not anything new for him. But
yeah. But obviously he don't rape them, so I don't know. I guess it's a fine line between.
Well, we haven't heard all allegations. We know he pays them now, and he pays them $150,000 a pop. That's how.
You don't pay him enough though, because they still want to talk about it.
Still traumatized. Could you imagine having that thing on top of you, sweating and breathing and shit?
It's worth $150,000. I know some guys that'll take that $150,000 for that.
But man,
for some Trump love. All right, fuck.
I mean, I guess you can buy a new booty hole mouth. That's cool, but still, at least find somebody that don't look like him. Just remove all the gayness from it. The fact that it's him bothers me more than that. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's like, goddamn, because Stormy was like, oh no, he got a little mushroom dick, and I was like, oh damn, she telling all his business, putting everything out there. I'm surprised he had kids. The way she talk about him. Like no stroke game.
At that level, low, you fucking wallet. You not fucking dick size. When you pole and you can love for love because love don't cost a thing. That's right. When you can. But when you at that level, love is $6 billion and $150,000 for me not to say nothing. That's what love is, and no matter what size it is, as long as my wallet's the proper size and you're gonna get taken care of, love is what that is at that level. It is a shame, but that's what it really is, though.
That's terrible, man. So, I guess besides Kavanaugh, man, what else been going on, man?
Well, I just caught wind. Somebody's posting today saying good old Yeezy, good old Kanye West was saying we should abolish the 13th Amendment. And I had to go, wait, that's not, no, I can't be talking about that. No,
you're lying about that. Come on.
No, he did say that. No, he actually did say that. But, so I was doing some reading. He didn't clarify himself enough.
He never do.
Hold on. That's got to be one hell of a clarification to go from repeal the Second Amendment to. I got to have a clarification.
So 13th Amendment, folks, that's slavery. Now, there's a bit of irony there with a black man saying we should abolish the amendment that abolished slavery. Pretty much enabling slavery again.
Yeah, this guy's kind of crazy.
What he meant to say was that the clause in there, not the clause, I think it's in the second sentence or the second part of the first sentence where it talks about abolishes all forms of indentured servitude or slavery, with the exception of incarceration or something to that effect. That's the part that he was trying to get at, like the incarceration part.
Right.
But he ended up saying, well, let's just abolish the 13th Amendment. And I'm like, bro, you should have did your research a little bit. Like, is Kim slipping him something we don't know, or I don't know what's going on, but
well, Kim actually been on the trail of getting a lot of guys' sentences
commuted,
and she actually been freeing a few people out of the prison system lately. She's been actually going to meet with the orange wig guy, and been getting Trump to turn some people cases over.
Yeah. I heard about that.
She's been working, bro. She's been working.
But I wouldn't put it over Trump that he looking at that booty. He like, yeah, come on over here, talk to me. Let's have a quick conversation just to get it in the room. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Trump is like dirty like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let a few of them out of there. You can bring that thing over here. Yes.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Kim K is not. She's definitely still hot.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't touch it though, man. Not parts of her are still under 18. I can't do that. No, I got to have everything above the age of 18.
You see that? That's because you're saying that because you got that poor man love. But when that rich man love and they come with you, and they fucking put together like fucking.
Man, Drag know damn well he'll knock Kim down. He has.
You talking about she got young
he said that on the live video. I don't know if he lied like that.
You know, when you get to that level, you know what's going on. Everything
No,
up there is
no,
Christians-
I knock her down. No, I'm not even gonna lie. But no,
What them Christians always be saying about God? Won't he do it? Won't he do it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I will.
damn right he do
Yeah.
it.
Put my face all in it too.
What?
Man, but I wouldn't pay what, $60,000? Was it
$60,000 for what?
to fuck a porn star or fuck a Kim Kardashian?
If they paid me, well,
If-
how much would I pay them?
Well, no, how much did Trump pay?
Oh, he paid them 150 grand, right? 150 grand.
150 grand?
Isn't that the deal? 150
Something like
grand.
that. I think it was 100 grand or
100 grand, just over
how much?
100,000.
No, hold on. Y'all talking about hush money or
The hush money.
Oh, I think it was 150.
Yeah, it's like 150 grand.
Yeah.
You pretty much paying her for pussy though. Still,
Yeah,
Well, I guess.
but
No,
to a
you
billionaire,
can't-
that's
you can't hurt-
nothing.
You
To a
paying her not
billionaire,
hurt
that's
your
like
brand, hurt your campaign.
that's like $25 to you. For Trump, it's like $25. Like yo,
Yeah, that ain't
you
no
should've-
money. That ain't no
you
money.
should've paid her
yeah,
another
at Trump level.
20,000. If you ever break this contract, you better tell people I have an 8-foot long dick. Don't tell them my actual size, cause man,
But how you going to enforce that? Like, is Trump going to sue her? Is Trump now going to sue her and say what she's saying is true? And I don't want her to, and I want her to stop saying it. He can't sue that girl. She
I don't
knows
know.
that.
man, he should have picked
They
somebody.
put it in the
more-
clause. If they put it down on the clause, it could.
Yeah, but I'm saying he can't sue her just politically.
No, he can't. He can't. No,
Because
he can't.
that opens up the discovery. Okay, let's see, where was you at on this day? Now we got to try to prove this. It's a whole different story.
That's true. So, what did we basically? Oh man, I sent you that clip. Well, I guess for a pin and tell. I don't know if you use it. We probably
Yeah,
we
that's
don't-
the one we was going to start off with. So y'all want to move it right under the clip?
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's play it because I know people have been saying we've been talking about Trump every episode. I'm like, I mean,
oh my
that's
God, that's
the
so
word on the
fucking
street.
funny.
He's the
There's not a
president.
week that goes by that he don't do it say something fucking crazy. So I mean, this Kanye's up there too saying shit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we ain't got nothing to say about Pence because he's so quiet and stupid at the same time.
Yeah,
Pence don't do a lot, so it's okay. I don't know.
it's hard to say. Pence is there was something he was doing recently. I forgot what it was.
I ain't heard nothing from Pence, really, man. Nothing. I really heard nothing that was interesting.
Everything that he does or might do gets overshadowed anyway. So it's like,
Well, yeah, it does. It does. That's true.
he could go out and shoot somebody in the face. Oh, he did. Oh man, was he mad? Did somebody owe him money? You know, you got a second guess when Pence in the news. It's like, nah, that's fake news, my man. Pence don't do shit. He's sitting back. Shit. Oh my goodness. Looks like a few people because I saw Bible Thumping Wingnut show is live, and
Yeah.
I didn't. We got more live viewers than they do now because they're doing reviews of they're like breaking down atheist experience, and I'm like, man, if y'all rub y'all brain cells together, y'all might come up to maybe a half a human being's worth of brain cells. I think if y'all combined them and averaged them, because y'all are trying to, because the people on the atheist experience are fairly well educated, like surprisingly well educated, and that shouldn't be a surprise, but a lot of them I think got like master's degrees and shit.
Of course they do, man.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
But now you got these two cats over here trying to break down, somebody else's shit. And I'm like, they can try. They can try. I've dealt with them in the past, years and years ago. I don't think they got the mental horsepower, but by all means, try.
I mean, it's fun to actually watch flies, go at lions. Yeah, it's just a fun thing to watch. I mean, but they should keep trying. They have to keep trying. Honestly, Drag, to keep their sanity because
Yeah. Well, they lost their lightning rod, their flagship dude,
I heard
Matt
it.
Slick. Yeah, he took
Yeah.
off.
But what Matt Slick did? What did
I think it was creative differences, but I think that what I think personally is that Matt got tired of having Lynn and fucking what's his face up underneath the table sucking his dick every 2 seconds. So maybe he just got tired of it. Like, I mean, but seriously, every time they would bring somebody in the room, like I guess because Scholar Fiction went in there, Positively Guileless, with Max Hangs Out. I think he calls himself Catholic Fusionist now. A lot of people went in there.
I went inside there before.
Yeah, oh yeah, you did too. And so every time I tried to watch this shit, Matt would engage with someone. He goes, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" And then the conversation would actually start getting somewhere. And then not even after the second point, here come, Tim, you're badgering Matt. Just stop, like this. So they got to mute whoever he's talking to in the middle, and Matt would be like engaging. He would be in the middle of a fucking sentence, and they're trying to interject to go protect Matt because somebody else is getting the fucking point in. And I'm just like, why? And evidently, Slick got tired of that shit, so he said, I can do my own thing, man.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, grow your own wing nuts.
Yeah. Because they're not interesting on their own. Like, yeah, somebody saying Lynn's lispy ass. Yeah, it's as to Tim. It's just go whisper in Tim's ear and talk to whatever y'all want to talk about and get that going. But hold a room by yourself and be interesting, and maybe I'll watch, because other than that, y'all just hanging off somebody else's nuts all the time. Just saying. So anyway.
All right.
Casey Atheist says he's not a gun guy.
Let me put the clip up here so we can all see it. All right, so this is a clip from Penn and Teller provided by my man Emperor Atheist. So let's make it happen. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me turn it to the clip page.
Penn and Teller, of course, my favorite atheist magicians.
Yeah, Homeboy lost some weight recently.
Here we go.
Yeah. See that.
So what does the Second Amendment actually say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's it. Not a lot of words, just very specific ones.
It means that the states have the right to have a well-regulated militia. And a 20-year-old kid carrying an assault weapon on the streets of downtown America has absolutely nothing to do with a well-regulated militia.
Well, no. Read the words. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Sure, you need an organized military force to defend your country, but the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the people, in contrast with the militia. It doesn't say the right of the militia to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It says the right of the people. Now, why the word people? Because the people who wrote this had just fought a war for 2 years against the tyrannical state militia. They knew the time might come when they'd have to do that again. So they made the possession of weapons a right that the militia could never take away. Now, gun control advocates say the phrasing is clumsy, and the comma separating the state from the people is just a pause to get your breath. Strange, they can't seem to point out any other places where those hack framers fucked up. Wouldn't stricter gun laws stop horrible tragedies like Columbine?
Columbine would not have been prevented by more gun control. The fact of the matter is, nobody likes to talk about, is all the gun control laws already on the books that these kids broke, and the person who sold them firearms broke. None of them prevented Columbine.
You can't stop insane people from doing insane things by passing insane laws. That's insane.
It doesn't have fingers to pull its own trigger, or a brain to commit murder or to commit a crime. So the person who misuses that gun is the person who should be punished for the misuse. And punish them. Don't punish me, don't punish the gun.
Every night in Las Vegas, we express this idea in our live theater show. No, we don't make Mount Rushmore disappear. We'll leave that to Chris Angel. Teller and I are proud Americans. We consider ourselves to be patriotic, and we got a little more patriotic about 7 years ago when we spent time in Egypt, China, and India. Because nothing can make you love the USA more than overseas travel. And when we were overseas, we were humbled by the realization of how much of our prosperity and our happiness, even our individual personalities, how much of all of that comes directly from the liberties that are symbolized by this flag. But even so, a couple of goofballs handling the flag on stage in Vegas does bring a weird kind of energy to the room. It's an energy we're talking about. We talk about content, because, with this piece of cloth on stage, there's a lot to think about. The Bill of Rights. the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of the United States of America. This is not the real original Bill of Rights. We can't afford that yet. But all the words, and more importantly, all the ideas are on this paper. We have the Second Amendment, which we deal with rather explicitly in our last bit this evening, and the First Amendment, which is usually abbreviated the Freedom of Speech Amendment. And speech has been defined rather broadly to include symbolic speech, and therefore the Supreme Court has said we can do anything we want with this flag. The thinking seems to be, no matter what happens to the flag physically, symbolically, it's always protected by the Bill of Rights. So we can take a piece of tinder and a very eccentric magic wand, and we are allowed legally to do this. And it's okay. Because even though the flag is gone, the Bill of Rights remains. Well, we like to think we added a little bit of content to that bit. First of all, there's an idea that Teller and I have been talking about forever. And that is what would happen if you were to burn a flag, not in disgust, not in protest of anything, but rather in celebration of the very freedoms that flag symbolizes. But more relevant to our show is the ambiguity. The fact that you don't really know what's going on. And when you leave here tonight, you're thinking about our show, as we hope you will be. Maybe you're going to go out and have some dessert, nice big slice of apple pie with your mom and your red meat and your handguns. We hope the idea of ambiguity comes up. Did we burn a flag? Did we symbolically burn a flag? Or did we merely vanish a flag in a patriotic flash of fireworks? It's all of those, it's none of those, it's up to you. Most shows and movies and TV are all fake, they're phony, they're fiction. And news and sports are supposed to be real, but Penn and Teller, we like to drive fast right on down the middle. Because sometimes we're showing you and telling you the truth as we see it from the bottom of our hearts. And sometimes we're lying, cheating, and swindling. And it's up to you to figure that out. We can only allow you that freedom because we're working in a free country. If we're trying to do our show in another country, a country without our Bill of Rights, kind of, for instance, the Chinese Bill of Rights, well, things would be different. Because there's one thing a totalitarian government cannot tolerate, it's ambiguity. They don't care very much what you believe, as long as you all believe it together. So it wouldn't be enough to just show you that the flag was fine at the end of the trip. Not in that context, no. Have to show you every step of the way. Make sure you're all thinking and feeling the exact same thing. Make sure there was no dissent. Make sure that you're all united. And once we've done that, once we've laid it all out for you, do whatever we want. Take a piece of chemically treated flash paper and a very eccentric magic wand, and we can do this. But it's a lousy trick. Because the Chinese Bill of Rights is not worth the acetate it's not printed on, and that's why Penn and Teller is so proud to work in the United States of America.
Well, Emperor, I gotta say one thing. We gotta stop you from giving us the propaganda videos.
Okay, I had to do that.
Magic trick.
There's still more. But yeah, that's a propaganda video right there.
You don't like magic tricks? I like magic tricks.
I like it.
The whole Constitution is filled with propaganda and interpretation. So that was a great video.
That was a great video. It was propaganda.
Well, see, it really was about the whole video was okay and the way they presented it, but the main problem I was talking about the way the Second Amendment sometimes interpreted by people. A lot of people are so off with it, especially how he showed the two differences of thoughts when you're talking about the militia. The militia. And when you talk about the second part, which you talk about, he actually pointed out that there were two separate parts, two separate speeches, speaking of militia and speaking of the people, and saying that the rights of the people shouldn't be infringed. The militia been a totally different thing. But a lot of people misinterpret. Some people think the people means local government, which it doesn't, not according to the forefathers who actually drew this up. The Bill of Rights which are the first 10 basically amendments. But this interpretation, and this is the problem now, the interpretation and how people are using it now within the last, I guess I can say, 25 years. What was the main idea what was the thought process when James Madison and all these other people were drawing this up? What were they thinking? What was the history like during the drafting of these particular things? So that's what I think is important to talk about too. Not just people. I need a gun. I need a gun. I think we should talk about.
But that's Scalia's view. It's called originalist. You want to go back to when the document was first drawn up and understand it from that. You know, what did these people mean when they? But that brings its own set of challenges. What were they thinking? But that brings its own to the challenges too, because you know what they were thinking in 1700s about, you know, what does this mean in that context is a lot different than what it means in the context of today. You know, because back then, you know, most people can get the same type of weapon where that military officers used. You know, everybody was using rifles, and the gun was still pretty new. So you didn't have some things like, you know, nuclear weapons that are banned and things of that nature.
And that's the point. That's the point I'm making. So when we think about the time periods, you have to keep everything in context, and you think about the time frame and what was going on, and America actually freeing itself from a militia itself, which was the British military, which was a militia. And basically, if you understand the reasons and what was going on historically, especially with people like James Madison, by the way, who I have to bring this up, who was a slave owner. You know, you had what you call Federalists at this time, and you had the Anti-Federalists. You had the northern states, Northern militia, and you had the Southern militia. Now, as for the Southern militia, you know, the militias were formed. When you talk about the two different ideologies of the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, then of course, you know, the Anti-Federalists was against a whole state of military type force, because they was afraid that, you know, the people's rights could be infringed upon if everything is militarized. But, you know, when you even talk about the Anti-Federalists, and when you talk about slavery during this time, a lot of the Southern militias, they didn't give a damn. They didn't really focus. They focused one on, well, we need our guns just to fight against overpowered military. We want our guns, basically, because we want to keep slaves on the plantations and make sure they don't run. See, all of this is part of the history, and a lot of people don't talk about it. So we want our guns so we can keep free labor down, and have more guns so we can keep slaves in check. So, and believe me, when James Madison, who was the fourth president of the United States, he had all of this in his mind. He knew this. He knew these things when he was drafting this up. So there's a lot of different historical points about this, and a lot of different, like I say, keeping it in its context and its time frame, and then comparing it now to 2018 where we are today.
Yeah, I think that's knowing the history behind any document, any scenario is definitely important. And that's actually something we were talking about before with the different views of the Constitution itself, because we had the originalists and then the ones that believed it was a living document. I can't remember the name of it. But that's, I think this really signifies how interpretation comes into play, whether we're talking about politics or the Bible. It is very important because to me personally, I value things within its context, as many people should, but I'm not too concerned with people's original views unless I am simply trying to understand it in their time period, or understand it for some specific purpose. But if it's something that I feel that it applies to this current day, well, things are going to have to change because things have changed since that time. So for me to go back and say, well, I'm looking at this amendment and I understand what they meant in that time, well, that's all good and dandy, but times have changed. We have evolved. And so now we have to reevaluate what is happening here in its current context and not harken back to that time because, well, that's what they originally wanted. Well, they're dead. They're not living this life. We are.
But that progressive way of thinking, the argument a bit against that is, okay, so where does it say that at? Because that interpretation gives the person who's making that interpretation, who's telling us what it really means now, that person has all the power. That person makes all the decisions. Because we can't trust what it says on the document. We've got to trust what you tell us it says for today. And that's the fear. The fear is if you're telling us that the document has to be interpreted to where what it says, what we say it says today, that's what it really means, then the words now have lost their meaning. It's really who's interpreting those words that have the power.
Well, sure, and that's kind of one of the downsides to having a more progressive view about it. Yet, if the document and the concepts held within don't necessarily apply to the current day and age, then what is it used to, anyway?
Yeah, what's the purpose?
So that's kind of my, I guess, retort
Not to say
to that.
what the purpose is, but the thing is, the words have to have some meaning. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's a combination of the two. It's a combination of the aspirational. What does it mean for us today? And the past, looking backwards and saying, well, this is what it meant to them. And in between, that's what we're talking about. But I think in between those two, you have to go to the extreme and just say on one side, you're right. The document was written before, mankind went to the moon, before we knew that there were other planets out there in the universe, before, Einstein's theory of relativity. Right. That was written back then. That was the knowledge they have versus today. And I do agree that there is a change in the document. But now, for your aspirational view, Dragnot, there is a way to amend the Constitution. There is a way to change the document.
Right.
So why just allow 9 unelected judges to do it when the Constitution does have a process if you want to amend it? If you're right, if you believe that these rights evolve, why not evolve the document through the process that's been set forth in the Constitution? Why have to do it through 9 unelected judges?
Right. And so I think that the process of us trying to get amendments pushed through would ultimately be too cumbersome. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is how practical would it be to do it in this day and age? When's the last time we've actually amended the document, right? So getting everyone on the same page to do something like that would be a tremendous task. So I think that's why now we're embroiled with these discussions of, okay, well, let's keep the spirit of the document and not try to insert anything else in it. Or, well, if we're doing that, does it really serve the purpose for it to be, in service to us in this day and age? Like, how do we bridge that gap between those two things? And so going through a lengthy amendment process would require us to be on a better accord to even begin something like that, which I don't think could happen right now.
Right. Well, what the guests got to say about it, man? What some of the guests got to say about it? Mutable Destiny, Brian.
All right. So here's the thing. I have no problem with, I don't want to actually just say all guns are bad and all guns are evil, because hate to take the bastardization from Seneca. It's not the sword that kills people, it's people that kill people. But the fact of the matter is, in this world we have today, people are broken. And to some degrees, some extent, people are fucking broken. And you're giving, literally in cases, a loaded gun to kids, and you're expecting them to use it properly. Now, I think as far as gun control, I feel we should actually have both a marksmanship test, not as strenuous as we have in armed forces, but also a psychological test if you're going to have a gun, because in the end, it's too easy for people to kill people.
Right.
And the fact is, I'm not even going to go down the assault rifle debate, because there's no such thing as an assault rifle. There are automatics, semi-automatics, and non-automatics. We shouldn't have semi-automatic weapons. Those are explicitly done to kill people.
I mean, any gun can kill someone, though.
Yeah, but you're basically looking to mow people down with a semi-automatic.
It's very hard to draw the line right there and then it's semi-automatic, because that's why people try to use the assault weapon label, because semi-automatic covers a very large range of weapon platforms.
Yeah, it do.
Yeah. So I mean you have everything from like a hunting rifle. You can have a semi-automatic hunting rifle, or you could have an AR-15, which is also semi-automatic. There is a very wide range that it covers. You have a
semi-automatic handgun. I mean,
yeah. I mean, most are any handgun that you're going to buy today is pretty much going to be semi-automatic unless you're looking at something special.
Oh yeah, I like special guns.
Oh no, and here's the thing. I am not saying that it's hard to draw the distinction. We don't need that distinction. For the love of God, the revolver was spurned. Was the development of the revolver was spurned on because, well, maybe slaves were revolt, or it was because I believe Smith and Wesson discovered they fucking developed the revolver right towards the end of the Civil War, right after the Civil War, because they were scared.
Yeah,
they were scared that former slaves were going to rise up and start killing white people, and it's just like we as humans have a capacity, the capacity of building and inventing, and it's been spurred on by conflict. And at some point, we have to say, like, stop. Like, we don't need these tools as deeply entrenched as we have them now. And maybe because where I grew up, it was just hounded by violence. Maybe because when I grew up, I grew up in the 90s on the south side of Chicago, where you think violence is bad now in Chicago. It was worse then. They just couldn't have it on the news as much as they did. And the guns let's take away that tools. Let's do what they did in Japan. Yes, in Japan, they still have people that died through the violence, but you have people that you see attacks of 20 people injured in the school because of a guy's wielding a knife. You don't have 20 people who are shot dead in the school because the cops couldn't get to them in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. Japan has basically eradicated gun crime, really, with their particular laws. That's true. That's very true.
But what do you say to the argument that someone will come and say, we don't negotiate with rights? Like, this is a right, and why should I have to negotiate away my rights?
We negotiate with rights all the fucking time. The fact is, it's about picking and choosing which rights and what you want to negotiate. Last time I checked, you still can't yell fire in the crowded theater.
Yeah, that's a limitation, which I think everybody would agree there should be a limitation on rights. But it seems like you're advocating for an abolishment, for that there should be citizens who are not allowed to have guns.
Well, we as individuals negotiate our rights all the time because we understand that to get along in a civil society, we can't impose our absolute right to everything over everyone all the time. That's no way to live with our fellow man. But that's not the discussion here. The discussion is whether or not we cede those rights to an entity which does not necessarily have our well-being in mind, nor does it play on the same level as we do. That's the question behind the Second Amendment.
And so my question is, what is this entity? Because I know what a lot of people actually say, and a lot of people say, well, the government is still made up of people. And last time I checked, there were no tyrannical, how do I put it? There is no functional, capable, tyrannical government because people will push back, and we get more. The civil rights movements, they mostly did not have violence as a tool, because now we have something that is a more effective tool than violence, and it's called fucking empathy, because we see people out there. Yes, it may only last for a little bit, but that powerful movement of saying, hey, I'm a person. Hey, you're a person. Treat me like a person. We were talking about Kavanaugh earlier today. The fact that we are paying attention to her, where her story is nowhere near the level that some people have actually had. That empathy is more of a weapon than some of the guns that people say is going to prevent the government. And in reality, you and your AR, you and your whatever, semi-automatic, the government still has tanks. They still, if they're tyrannical enough to come and take your land, take your home, They have tanks, they have nukes, and they have the mom, the mother of all bombs.
The reason why, and that's the distinction here, is that when the Second Amendment, under the aspiration, before we became a country, in England and under the feudal kind of law system, the power of violence was held in the king, and the king would never lose. And that weapon of having violence and having the ability to arm yourself being only with the government, that is what the Second Amendment was created to try to stop, to try to say, okay, government won't be the only people that have the ability to have arms, to defend themselves. The people will also have it. But now, what does it mean by people? Does it mean the state militia or the state? Because in the 10th Amendment, it says the rights reserved to the people, to the state and the people thereof. So it kind of treats them as the same entity, or is it an individual right? And that's what the recent Supreme, I believe Heller versus DC, that's what it instituted, that the interpretation of the Second Amendment is an individual right where the individual has the right to bear arms. And that's the uniqueness now of why we were talking about it.
The question is, are later Supreme Courts going to do what they did to the 1939 decision?
Right.
Where the 1939 decision looked at it as just as related to the militia. And they said that, or the 28 case, or the 2008 case said that one was a odd decision. So, I mean, will later Supreme Courts look at it differently, or?
Well, they may.
They should, because it's ambiguous. Well, let me say this. First of all, the language within the Constitution, as we bring it up to date, has become very ambiguous. So it's a lot of, like the interpretation is sort of loose. But I think Thomas Jefferson and a lot of other people kind of made it, even if we go back and speak about the time frame, I think they made it clear, man, when they did a separation of who the militia was, who the state was, and who the people were as individuals. So, and I want to get back to what Brian was saying. I'm trying to understand what Brian was saying. I kind of agree with Brian on a lot of things, but I want to just ask Brian: are you saying that I know you're not saying that the Second Amendment should be taken away from people, but you're just saying we need stricter gun laws? Is that basically what you're saying?
So here's the thing: would we truthfully be able to get away to stop the ocean of guns that we're all swimming in? No. However, I really feel that we should have limitations. If you have to go for a driver's test every fucking 5 years, you should at least have to go for a usage test for a gun. Now, do I really think that we should get rid of guns? Yes, I do. I will be unapologetic about that.
But again, you're making the analogy fails because driving is a privilege. Driving is a privilege. They can take away that privilege to drive. But now you're talking about someone's rights. You're talking about you got to be recertified to. It's almost like you're saying there should be a poll tax or something inherently invested in stopping people from exercising this right, or something really to say liberty. So that's what I'm trying to make this distinction, because the driving example I think was beautiful, but it's a privilege, not a right.
So I don't want to get mired down in the principles of difference between a privilege and a right. It's still, in the end, something that you're responsible for having. There is a cost to a right. The freedom isn't free. A right to something doesn't mean that you automatically get it, because in the end, you still have to be a responsible member of society. If you don't want to be a responsible, if you want unalienable or unsellable freedom, don't be part of the society. But this is the cost that you pay. And in the end, here's the thing: if we take away all of the guns, criminals, good people, all of that, people will still find a way, a tool to try to hurt people. I am not delusional with that, but at least let's make it harder for people to kill people. That's it.
Well, what exactly would you propose then to make it harder for people to kill people?
Right. And you know what? That is a question we've been trying to answer for the dawn of time. So I don't have an answer. But
allow the ATF to do their job. That would be.
No, gotta go.
Allow the ATF to have a budget that is a respectable budget for a national organization, and allow it to have more than 5,000 personnel, which is the same as the Harris County Sheriff's Department.
You misunderstand the nature of the ATF, though. It's not necessarily a law enforcement agency.
It's a regulatory agency, and the ATF has been like 108 academic studies have looked at the ATF and said that it's underfunded, understaffed, and it doesn't have the resources to do its mission.
But it's not even a regulatory agency. It's a taxing agency. It actually falls under the Department of Treasury. Its job is to ensure that taxes on firearms, federal taxes on firearms, are collected, and that gun owners.
It's also supposed to do background checks and other things, and it's also is not able to digitize its records system. So
NICS doesn't fall under the ATF's jurisdiction.
It does. There's actually riders in their budgets that disallow them from actually passing that duty over to Secret Service or FBI.
Okay.
So actually, that's I think it might be time for us to get to our second video.
Oh, but you know what? But Drake, before we do, you're right. I think it is time to get to the second part. But I want to say this.
Cool.
And it's just coinciding with basically what we've been saying about some of these constitution amendments need to be updated. Maybe even the Second Amendment. Because think about it. Just look at like what Nate just said about. Think about everybody. Our time period driving. Everybody drives, but it is right. It is true. Driving. This is just an example. Driving is a privilege, but driving actually should be a right now, but it's not. But guess what though? We do have a right to travel. Now, when you look into the amendments in the Constitution, as far as a right to drive a license versus a right to travel, you kind of see that's kind of stupid and it's kind of outdated, because when you actually go and look at the amendments on the right to travel, you see where it says no one should be impeded on, riding their carriages. So we're talking about before there were cars. Okay, we had a right to travel. The people could not be stopped with right to travel. People don't use horses and buggies these days. So why haven't we updated that? Why haven't we made driving? You understand what I'm saying? It's a right to travel, but driver's license still a privilege. So I think some of that stuff kind of don't make sense, and a lot of things do need to be updated.
If you establish driving as a privilege, it makes it that much more difficult for the states to collect taxes on licensing fees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I do want to say this. You're right about needing an amendment. We should make an amendment for publicly funded elections. Take fucking corporate money out of politics, and we'll solve so many problems.
It'd be a good idea, but I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, because you still gotta advertise. The money's not running; it's the advertisement.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to get that lobbying out of there.
But now, since the Supreme Court has determined, spending your money is free speech, then that's not going to happen anytime soon.
No,
but let me before we
that's
go.
Why you do it. Let me just say this. That's why you do an amendment when you actually get 33 states or 3/4 of Congress.
34 states.
34 states, and 3/4 of Congress. I mean, like they said the same thing about women not having the right to vote.
Well, no, so if you get 34 states, you don't need Congress.
Yeah, you don't need Congress. It's 34 states or Congress.
Either or, yeah.
Right.
So they said the same thing about women not having the right to vote, and all of a sudden they got it because they kept up the pressure.
So every time that it's ever been going to reach 34 states, Congress will do something. So it'll never reach 34.
I don't know. I think you can call it. But you know what? Let's go to the clip because we're about to go down the rabbit hole. But let me see. Video watch clip number 2. This is from Dragna. This is what we get because Dragna likes to watch Fox News. You heard it here first.
Oh yeah, it's very educational, very fair and balanced too. Also, I'm actually a 6-foot hamster. By the way.
All right, here we go. Fox News clip from Drag.
Phillips. So, Kevin, you went out there and wanted to find out what people were protesting. You found out assault weapons was one of the things they wanted.
We went out asking a different set of questions, and after interview after interview, everyone kept saying we need to ban assault weapons. I thought surely they'll know something basic about it, and it was very clear they did not. And look, if you are going to advocate for real-world policy that will impact millions of Americans, you need to have real-world answers and be ready for a debate. And I think a lot of this stems from a lack of appreciation and understanding of the Second Amendment. So I began to ask them about the Constitution, people's Second Amendment right to self-preservation, and the responses were about what you'd expect.
I think that the Second Amendment at this time is outdated. I think that the wording needs to be revisited.
I think it's something that was meant for a different time. I think the Constitution in and of itself is something that's outdated.
I don't think it applies in today's society.
I don't think it leads to anything good or productive or peaceful.
They're so right. Just tear up the Constitution.
It never leads to anything good, like a country. And we've been seeing how in class, this is something we see all the time on college campuses with leadership institutes, campus forum, how people don't actually learn about the Constitution in class. They're not learning about how it's meant to protect people in society today. I wonder if this same logic applies to the First Amendment. Because the Founding Fathers, they never could have imagined Twitter. They couldn't have imagined YouTube and all these things to get rights out there. Or freedom of the press. Should we restrict the right of all journalists because a few journalists are misusing the freedom of the press? It's collective punishment for the actions of a few individuals. And now these same people, again, it's good that young people are getting involved, but you need to understand some of the basics of what you're asking for, because these are real world laws that will affect many people.
You know, as a reporter, when you go out, you get a feel for the story, and then you come back to the newsroom to write your story, and you say, all right, what was the story out there, and what would you say if I asked you that?
I think the main takeaway was, number one, how organized it was. I think a lot of people are interested in who is helping all this organization. It's obviously not just students that are doing it, and that was an interesting aspect of it, of who is organizing all of it. And number two, it was definitely how passionate the students were about change, but how many of them had not actually been taught on what kind of change they were looking for, and they didn't have many specifics.
So it's more like they're against school violence. They just don't know what to do about it.
And everyone's against school violence. And sadly, the thing that I noticed is when the second I began to push back a little bit, people would start to say, well, you have blood on your hands. If you don't support stricter gun laws, you support school shootings. That's the breakdown that we have now. It's all one or it's all the other.
The instinct should be security. Why was I gunned down? Nobody was shooting back for me, but that sentiment didn't prevail. It goes against logic.
And it also goes against, they said we haven't seen any action taking place since then. We've seen legislation in Florida. We saw the Stop School Violence Act here in D.C. And there's a narrative, though, that
fix in the budget.
Exactly. If we don't get exactly what we want, then this is not action. And that's not how legislation works. That's not how compromise works. And we need to do what's going to keep the most people safe, address the root of the problem, not just something that we view as scary, in this case, assault weapons.
Maybe if you're going to protest something, you should know exactly what you're protesting.
It's an important part of it.
All right. Kevin, thank you very much.
The most important part, probably.
There it is. Drag's obsession. Fox News.
Hell yeah. No, I think that they actually did make some good points. Believe it or not, they made if you're going to protest something, it's probably good to know what you're protesting. I think that's a pretty salient point. It's hard to argue with that.
That's true.
Yeah, but then they kind of slipped into, of course, the Fox News propaganda. Well, I want, you should have been asking, who's going to protect me? Who's going to be shooting for me? That I don't necessarily agree with that. There can be all types of measures or countermeasures you can put in place to stop someone who's obviously crazy from doing crazy things. But if every single student in the classroom was armed, I'm pretty confident only a handful actually would know how to respond in that scenario. And there are actually active shooter experiments that they've conducted where they've shown how many people, even during the training, how many people responded to an active shooter. And it was actually really interesting. Now, again, the one that I watched a while back, I think was a piece of propaganda. It was an actual class, but it was just one course. So I can't say for certain, the amount of people who would actually be impacted by folks who were trained on how to conduct active shooter drills, if they are armed, if they're not armed, et cetera. So I do think that while most of us kind of abhor, most of us, Fox News, they do make a good point when we're trying to say, well, I want assault weapons banned. I don't want this person to have this X, Y, and Z. Look, I got it. I understand. I personally don't want a particular idiot from New Jersey to own any weapons, and I don't want a particular toothless idiot from Kentucky to own weapons because I think that they do damage because they're mentally ill. But that being said, how do we go about deciding who deserves weapons and who don't? Like, where do we actually draw that line? I think some of us agree that you could if you had to, but where are we going to do it?
Well, like I said earlier, I think it's. Some people say it's not simple, but I mean, look at what Japan is doing. Look at what Japan do. They do not only do they do strenuous as far as like tests for they do mental health tests around the year for gun owners. I think you have to go through like a 5-day class. I mean, you have to show a particular IQ. You have to show a particular
IQ.
Yeah. You have
Really?
to
Oh man, that eliminate like 2/3 of the gun owners. We got shit.
I think that would be good.
That's half the country right there.
But you know what happens though?
I don't want
the gun owner people.
Gun people with guns anyway.
But the gun owners. See, the gun owners' argument is whatever you guys say. Let's change it from guns to voting. Would you guys think those type of restrictions should be put in place for voting?
No,
because it makes sense. You want an informed voter. You want people to do this.
No, wait,
people to do this.
But I have to say, Nate, that's like apples and oranges. They have nothing to do with each other. That's like saying me taking away.
We're talking about two rights. You're talking about I'm talking about the right to gun ownership. You're talking about the right to vote. These are two rights.
But like I said, once again, we're talking about guns being used by guns that can kill people. Me voting for Donald Trump ain't kill nobody. Me voting for Jill Stein for the Green Party wouldn't kill nobody. If I'm not just a smart voter, and I mean we have things in place for that, which I always win anyway. I mean, so voting is really like a non sequitur when you're talking about somebody killing children or going into a school, a mental health child who's not stable.
No, but I think
that's totally different from voters.
No, but you
just don't know what Donald Trump's platform really meant.
You just appeal to a consequence. And for instance, I can just do the same thing. I can say, well, yeah, voting for Donald Trump is going to kill X amount of people through starvation.
Well, I mean, it's just
appeal to
those are two different things.
But the thing is that just like we can appeal to, I can appeal to random consequences, just like you can appeal to random consequences for the fact that not all gun owners are going to do anything evil. The high majority of people who own guns, are law-abiding citizens who are never going to.
Well, that's not the argument.
If you're pulling out just the narrow point and saying these particular people, that's
not the narrow point.
I can use voting in the same particular way. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to use the general argument, these are rights. And if we treat these rights differently,
well, see, that's just the thing. We're not using the general argument. This is not a general discussion. We're talking about specifics here. This is nothing general about this particular topic. When you're talking about comparing just regular voting, no, you shouldn't take the rights away from voters. But when you're talking about guns, certain guns and a certain way people act with guns, we're talking about certain stringent laws that should be put in place. We're not talking about taking away the Second Amendment. That's just the same thing. I could ask you this question. If we want to talk about the Second Amendment and you want to talk about generalization, then how about this? What actually keeps in any amendment, and you're a lawyer, in any amendment or constitution, what actually stops a felon from owning a gun just because he's a felon? Now, if he doesn't serve this time, why can't felons have guns in this country? They're protected by the Second Amendment, but yet you stop felons from having guns. Nowhere in the Constitution where it says a felon can't have a gun.
Well, actually, you lose your rights as a citizen.
Why?
No.
If you don't.
If you're going to use the Second Amendment in a general form, it says shall not be infringed.
That's right. That's right.
Automatically. So the moment you say somebody loses that right, you've now infringed. So you've broken the Second Amendment.
Thank you, and that's my point.
Well,
so
I'm not learning on why felons, for instance, can't vote. They can't, there's a whole bunch of things they can't do. And like you're saying,
so
even
that's
one
what
of the Supreme Court has come forward and said their rights for gun ownership can also be removed. So I think there's limitations, like I can't scream fire in a crowded theater. But the general right we're talking about the general rights of the law-abiding citizens, which we agree are the majority of people who own these guns, the high majority, just like the high majority of people who are voting are doing it for some right reason. So what I'm saying is that if we're talking about rights, and you're saying putting up all these blocks in front of these rights, then if you're accepting of some type of test and monitoring and for psychological tests to make sure these people are exercising this right properly, then you can apply that to any other right. And what I'm talking about in a reasonable capacity.
Well, but we do have. So if somebody's mentally deranged, I'm pretty sure they can't own a gun. That's already in place, and it also goes with like if a person is mentally disabled, which comes along with certain IQ levels, they also can't own guns and they can't vote too.
Well, having a lot of these people who've done these gun shootings over the last 15 years in America have been diagnosed as mentally deranged. Having a few cases,
but those
actually
those things are closed to examination in a couple of cases because they were diagnosed.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean we got some gray area here. That's what the point I'm making. We got gray area here.
And you know what? Here's my biggest thing. It's not that we live in a world with similar cultures to ours where they've taken away guns and all of a sudden we have an oppressive country. We have Australia, all fucking Australia, which is mostly a country which has similar, not the same, similar history to ours, even up until where it was such an issue with racism and they stole a generation of children. They got rid of their guns. England, the people that we were so scared of that were going to take over, that we fought against, they got rid of their guns. It is a history that when you get rid of guns, shit don't fall into disrepair.
Okay, just before they didn't get rid of guns. They just made it a lot more stringent before we set up a false premise.
Yeah, we can't get rid of guns now. No.
Yeah.
So they made it a lot more stringent. England and Australia, ridiculous.
But I do want to make this distinction. I do think the Second Amendment, like I think most people in here, I agree that reasonable regulations should be placed upon the Second Amendment. So certain groups of people can't get guns, and I think what's going on now with the Republican Party defeating all legislation to that end is ridiculous. I think it's simple. 90% of Americans think in background checks, and so I agree with that policy. But I also understand the other side's point when they're saying that this is a right held in the Constitution. The right to bear arms. It says it there, and other rights that are not even there. You guys would say is a right. The right for a woman to choose, for instance, is not there. The right for you to marry who you want is not there in the Constitution. Those have been read in, but something that's actually there is something that most people would say, okay, well, you're telling me that it doesn't say what it actually says. So to that end, I would say that any impediments you put in front of somebody who wants to exercise this right, just understand these same arguments could be used for other rights, because it all leads to an end, and that's the fear of the people who have the Second Amendment, is that we don't kind of compromise any rights.
Well, I want to interject one thing, if I may. And that is pointing to England and other countries putting extremely stringent restrictions on gun ownership as an example of how to reduce crime is actually fallacious. England in particular has an extreme problem with violent crime related to edged weapons, knives and whatnot, to the point where British police will actually confiscate cutlery from people's homes in an effort to prevent violent crime. So just because you get rid of guns doesn't necessarily mean violent crime rates drop.
And I give you that. I definitely give you that. I'm not saying that, but we don't have one person raining down bullets on a concert of 500 people. Yes.
You don't have.
He's making an efficiency argument. He just can't kill as many people as he'd like.
No, you have trucks and mass stabbings instead.
Mass stabbings? I don't think one man could kill 100 people with a knife. Right? If one man come to a concert and stick 100 people, them 100 people, the other 99, man, I don't know what they were thinking. I mean,
I did bring a bomb to the concert in Britain.
Well, they gonna bring bombs. They gonna bring that. That's everywhere. That's everywhere. I don't think
we can outlaw fertilizer and reactive chemicals.
Well, how many fertilizer deaths have we had? How many people have actually killed people with fertilizer and bombs?
Fertilizer bombs are actually a fairly common and easy explosive to make. In fact, we found them all over the freaking place in Iraq.
Yeah, it is. And guess what? Ever since Oklahoma, ever since Oklahoma bombing, actually fertilizer has been watched all around the globe.
Exactly. That's the thing. Ever since the Oklahoma City bombing, fertilizer has been watched.
Yeah, I mean, very stringently.
Well, one of the reasons, though, why you don't have a lot of bombings in the U.S. is because there are other means available to perpetrate mass crime. The point I'm trying to make is removing guns from the equation does not eliminate violent crime. Nor does
agree with that. We agree with that.
But I think, Jim, to be fair, I think you're saying the elimination of crime isn't the mark here. We're talking about just to make it better, and I think. If you're talking about removing guns from the equation, I think you'll markedly make it better and reduce violent crime because you just won't have the tools to commit a lot of these crimes.
I think as long as humans are here, there's going to be crime and murder. I mean, hey.
England is ruling that out, though. England is an extremely violent country right now.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And they have some of the most stringent gun laws in the West.
But the violence isn't with guns. And the thing about it is, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the shit that's going on in England has to do with poverty. And even with the gun situation where we have a lot of violent deaths, especially here in Chicago, it has to do with poverty and the limited upward mobility of people. So they get desperate and they do stupid shit. And I am not saying at all that this will eliminate violence. And I am not saying that getting rid of a gun or having stringent laws it's gonna stop 100% of the crime.
It'll curve it though, maybe.
It will definitely curve it. And one fucking life saved is a world saved.
But we do have examples of this. For instance, you're in Chicago, and Chicago has some of the toughest gun laws in the country.
Yeah, but
and on the other side, you're telling us that you got a gun problem. So it seems like it almost is it's just hard to understand the reality of saying those two statements. Like we need to have tougher gun laws, and you're living in a place with the toughest gun laws, and you got the biggest gun problem.
But you know what?
Don't
what
have
happens?
Black market though.
Don't
but
have
here's
those
the thing.
problems.
Indiana and Wisconsin doesn't. They don't have good gun laws. Indiana, especially, people walk across the border and say, "Hey, I can get a gun anytime I want," and then they walk back. It's not that.
How many gun purchases in Indiana trace back to Chicago? I mean, do we have numbers?
Oh! I can give you one better. There's one right outside the city of Chicago that traced back to, I think it was above 50% of the gun crimes. And they actually protested. Jesse Jackson.
You talking about Hammond, Indiana?
Well, no, it was actually one in Riverdale.
Oh, okay.
Right outside of in Chicago, right outside of it is Riverdale, and they were responsible for most of the gun crimes. Jesse Jackson, Father Flager, they all protested the gun shop, and in the end, they could do nothing because the shop was right outside the city lines.
Well, I remember hearing something about that, but it's unless the states and the surrounding states have similar gun laws, it's almost ineffective to have stringent gun laws because people find a way to circumvent them.
Well, but hold on. The problem is that, let's say, for instance, this is not talking about a national ban, number one, and even though we'll still have, just like drugs come in from Colombia, they ship them things in from Colombia. We don't there's no place you're making cocaine here. It's got to be made in a specific place in a specific altitude, and we get tons of it shipped here. That's the reason why you have Pablo Escobar. So this notion that just for us banning or outlawing guns here is somehow going to magically solve the problem, then I would just point you to the drug trade as Exhibit A. But even without this abolishment of guns, what I'm saying is that it shouldn't just be between total abolishment or everybody gets a gun. We could have reasonable regulations, but where are those reasonable regulations now? What would you guys consider to be reasonable?
Yeah. What I consider every 6 to 24 months, a psych eval and a marksman eval, like a usage eval. I don't know what to say. Like, do you know how to hold a gun? Do you know how to shoot a gun? A training class every 6 to 24 months, depending on what can be hammered out in regulation, and no more than one fireable gun. Like there are people that have 3 or 4 handguns that just want to have them because, well, I just have them. I mean, like, let's not dance around the issue that a lot of people don't have guns because they are hunting. They want to feel safe. It makes them feel some sort of powerful, or it just compensates for some shit.
All right. I would contend with that. I own multiple guns. They don't make me feel safe. I just collect them because my grandfather made them for me because he was a gunsmith.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm
I
like,
mean,
What
I carry everywhere I go,
Everyone.
and like it doesn't necessarily change anything other than like it just increases my readiness for more situations.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that about everybody because some people just have guns because some people like to collect guns. Some people just want to don't feel powerful. They just want to protect their family. Somebody trying to come up in their damn house. I don't think everybody.
Not to mention that,
I'm not saying everyone, but I do have conversations and I do hear anecdotal conversations like, I'm going to get a gun because you never know what's out there. And it's like, what?
Yeah, but like, what like,
absolutely why you possess and
yeah,
own
like, why would you?
firearms.
Why else would you get a gun? I don't understand. Like, I wouldn't just get a gun just be like, yo, I'm just going to get it to hold it. You know what I'm saying? It's for a purpose.
I mean, I don't carry my Glock for Sierras and Golfs.
Right.
No, yeah. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't make the argument about, you know, why people have multiple guns. You can have it because you like to go to the range and you like to have an.
It's your business, really.
Yeah, that's
long as you ain't out there killing nobody.
So here's the thing. If you have, I'm going to use the example of my Deuce, the M2. That weapon is made to turn humans into Swiss cheese. Like that's exactly.
all you need is a stamp, though, Drag. All you need is a stamp.
Yeah. So now let me preface this. I would love to fire my Deuce. Absolutely. Like I think it was first made World War One or before World War One.
Yeah.
World War One.
Yeah, it was World War One. So yeah, so that's how old my Deuce is. That's why it makes widows very efficiently. So
I have a brand new Glock 40. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. Somebody come in my house. I would love to try it out, see how it open their chest up.
Yeah, I mean it's like
but I'm not out here picking on nobody. My Glock 40 never goes in my car with me. It just stays in the house.
But how do we decide, you know, who gets to have an M9, who gets to have my Deuce? Like, or should anyone have my Deuce? Like, how do we go about making such a regulation, such a determination?
That's the hard part. That's the hard part.
For the uninitiated, the Madus is the Browning M2 machine gun. It's a 50 caliber machine gun, typically used against vehicles and materiel, whereas an M9 is a 9mm pistol. Both are U.S. military.
Yes.
Like for instance, do you guys believe that if you're on the terrorist watch list, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun?
Well,
the
the problem with that is that they don't tell people who's on the terrorist watch list.
No, they don't.
What about is that the one that you can't fly on a plane? I'm sorry, the no-fly list. I'm sorry, the no-fly list.
No.
Yeah, that's something that's not have been adjudicated. You can just be on no fly list just out of no. And I'm not asking for unreasonable things, but something that's unadjudicated where you just like, oh, I don't like the way this person said something 20 years ago. Let's put them on a no-fly list. That's what that list turned into.
Okay.
So
this leads to it. So there was so leading up to my last deployment before I got out, they were getting us all ready, and I apparently showed up on a no-fly list because somebody that had a similar name but different middle name was on there, and they flagged my name as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
that they should take his guns.
When I used to do some background checks on people, I would get hits on the most innocuous people because they had 2 similar names to a guy that was actually on some kind of watch list, and then it would hold the whole process up for them. Even something simpler as getting an overseas travel pass in the Army.
So, Jim, you're against background checks? No background checks, Jim?
I didn't say I was against background checks. All I'm saying is that
I want a computerized system for the background checks.
But everybody do agree. Let me ask this.
No, Brian doesn't agree. He said he wants no background checks. Fuck that.
Who said that?
That's what Brian said.
I don't want a background check where it's unadjudicated. where it's just like, hey, let's just put you on a list, and now you can't get a gun.
Well, no, that's not the list. That's back. So they're two different things.
That's different. Those are different.
No, I agree with the background check.
Okay.
I agree with the background check.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Does everybody agree that whatever type guns there are, whether from automatic to whatever, M9, whatever, that everybody, free, we talking about free citizens under the Constitution. Everybody agree that not all free citizens should have all types of guns. Y'all agree to that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree to that.
It depends on what you're defining as firearm.
There you go now. Okay, well, okay. No. What I'm saying, see, that's a gray area. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying, say if we got this crazy person, even if you got a 9mm, he just go off into a classroom, a kid or whoever, no matter what it is. If it's a 357, even if it's a 357, you know what I mean? Is it a type of way that do you agree that all people, period, don't no matter what it is, semi-automatic, whatever, just only difference between just certain guns can kill more people rapidly. That's all. But I mean, do you agree that all free citizens don't deserve to have certain type guns, whether they're semi-automatic or automatic? What difference does it make?
I would say I would agree to that.
Only problem is we don't know.
I don't.
Say that again, Xavier. Who's that? Xavier talking or?
That's Jim.
But it's Jim. What? Say it again, Slim Jim.
I don't see why we should restrict firearms ownership for law-abiding citizens.
Law-abiding. See, that's another gray area.
Yeah, you just said free citizens. He's talking about every person who's legally allowed to own a weapon, no matter what, right? Well, not even legally allowed. Every free citizen. If you're a free citizen.
Well, you know what? Let me address Slim Jim terminology of law-abiding. Let me address that.
All right.
A lot of times, even if you want to say terrorists, some terrorists on certain lists, man, have never committed a crime that they've ever been arrested for or locked up for.
True.
You look at some people who's actually went in and killed people or killed multiple people who had great families, come from great families, and all of a sudden they just snapped and did something. So, I mean, does law-abiding, how do we separate? It's not like most of these people who actually done these things have a history of hurting people. Some of them have a history of mental health issues. Some of them have had a history of mental health issues that probably could have been traced before they bought guns or whatever. But I'm talking about just law-abiding. What do we mean by law-abiding citizens?
Well, right. When I talk about a law-abiding citizen, I'm not necessarily referring to anything concrete.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Can I say something about the law-abiding citizen term?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing about law-abiding citizens. It's actually a very loaded word because here's the thing. That was actually used specifically towards the run-up of when Nixon actually targeted his political enemies, where these people are criminals or these people look like criminals. And it was used as a way to say like, oh, no, you're law-abiding, meaning that you don't look like this or you're not part of this group, where it was basically certain people were criminalized.
Right.
But I mean, the usage of the word has since passed from that into the common vernacular. Just like when I say spook, I'm talking about somebody who works for the agency and not necessarily using a racial epithet.
But the thing about it is that tone is still there. And it's like, yes, you can say spook because it has actually the definition has completely changed, but there is still criminalization. And we have studies after studies when they say, well, because you're a certain demographic, you may be the same age as this one person, but you look older, so you should know better.
I literally have no idea of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. Yeah.
So there were studies done, and even with the guy, what was the kid that got shot in Cincinnati? Who was playing with the toy gun? They legit, the officer says, well, he looked older, so he looked like more of a threat. Where he was just a kid in the park playing with a toy gun. They didn't even wait to get out the car to shoot this man. And it was a term, law-abiding, or it's a term that, well, these people don't look like they're law-abiding. They look like criminals. And that's where the law-abiding term is still being used to single out people in minorities.
Well, from what I remember of that situation, it wasn't a matter of whether or not the individual looked as though he were law-abiding or not. It was the officers responding to a potentially deadly or lethal, deadly weapon situation, and acting not only to preserve the safety of everybody else in the area, but their own safety as well. Let's just put it this way. When I believe I'm confronted with
right there.
somebody with a firearm, I don't play games.
Right.
And I will end you quickly and decisively if I believe my life or the life of innocent bystanders is in danger. That's not a threat. It's just, that's how I approach situations.
Baby.
But
a promise.
I don't know where any of you live. Well, I think I know where Dragon is, but
so here's the thing with that. There was a time where we actually trained police officers to, and I'm not saying anything, I'm not specifically saying one particular person, but nowadays we train police officers are the most important thing that they should do is make it home to their family instead of serve the community. And that's a totally different discussion, and I would love to have that discussion at a different time. But yeah, the fact that you, especially with I think it was Tamir Rice, where they didn't even let the car stop before they hopped out while the car was still running and gunned him down. He didn't even have the gun in his hand. The guy in Walmart, they were in Walmart where he had a toy gun, and as soon as they came up to the man, they put him down. And the fact is, they didn't even look to see what he had. And those are just the clear cases of, well, there's guns everywhere and we should shoot because we need to protect ourselves. And I'm not even saying that it is a bad thing that police officers need to protect themselves, but this is also blowback for having guns everywhere, for having everybody and anybody the ability to have guns, because we live in a society of just fucking fear. So yes, I would.
I'm not really afraid.
So are we having is this a bigger discussion on the referred to as having ammosexuals about? So should we be discussing ammosexuals?
Well, I might have to excuse myself from this one because I am definitely aroused at the sight of 50 caliber rounds.
I mean, obviously you have tanks and interballistic missiles look like on your profile pic.
Oh my Lord. I know. I get I'm not gonna lie, my pants get kind of tight when I look at my profile.
Yeah, you look like a Russian. You look like your name is Kobolowski.
Well, okay, so there's a little bit of background behind that. My wife got that hat for me as a joke, and a buddy of mine, I sent him a picture of me wearing it, and he's like, "Oh, I know what I'm going to do with this," because he's a graphic designer. So he commied the hell out of it.
Yeah, he definitely did. You definitely look like a USSR old pic.
He has a unique sense of humor.
Yeah, it looked nice, though. It looked nice.
Thank you. I'll let him know.
Oh yeah, so I think that's one of the things that I like to address in the conversation, especially when we're talking about trying to compare the U.S. and its gun culture and gun laws to Europe or wherever else, is that they don't have really a gun culture. So when all these other countries get wrested of their guns, well, they went that easily because they didn't put them up to a fight. It was like, okay, well, it's not totally ingrained into our culture here, so have at it, whatever. But here in America, that's a stark difference. Like we love our weapons. Hell, even here in Houston, there's a rodeo coming soon. But after the rodeo, there's gonna be a gun show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Either that or the Strawberry Festival, one of the two. So, should we be addressing the gun culture? Is the gun culture the problem?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I guess I don't know if the gun culture is the problem or not.
Yes.
Could be, I guess.
I would say that it's actually not. I would actually say that Americans are further along the curve in terms of personal responsibility for their own safety than the rest of the developed world.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when the chips are down, and we're on at the very end of it, the 9mm travels a hell of a lot faster than a cop car.
Right.
Right. That's why I carry everywhere I go, because cops are too heavy. and there aren't enough of them for me to have one in my backpack.
That was the sound like one of those Visa commercials. I had never traveled. What is it? What's the commercial? You never travel alone without
Travel
it.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's in your wallet?
What's in your wallet? It's
Oh,
a
I got
9mm.
all-
Slim Jim's got a 9mm.
Actually,
Slim
it's kind of
Jim-
funny you mention that because I carry a subcompact, and it literally does fit in my pistol or in my pocket.
But listen, I'm going to ask you. This always happens. Have you ever been in a situation where you have your gun, and have you ever had to like go to some place and somebody says you were going someplace and you see the dreaded metal detector?
No, but
That's never happened to you when you carry. But do you have a carry permit?
Yeah.
And you've never gone to a place where you couldn't bring your gun, where it's like, okay, there's a metal detector going on.
No, I actually try to plan ahead for that.
Oh.
Like because I hate leaving my gun in my car, for example. So I'll either like make sure that I don't have like I'll try to avoid places like that if at all possible, or I'll try to make it as in and out as fast as I can. Like I feel naked when I go unarmed.
Yeah, that sounds like my cousin. My cousin goes everywhere. He and I we went to see the last Star Wars movie, and he was carrying his weapon on him because he had just gotten off work, but he still carries it even when we're going to go IHOP. He has it on him, just in case. But he is law enforcement, so I kind of guess expect that from him. But for someone who's not law enforcement, I guess I kind of get like, are you going to play Rambo today, or what's going on? But the fact that it's really normal here in Texas. It's not really disconcerting as most people would make it out to be. So I can't say that. Well, right. They're doing it. That's just it makes me there's chills. I don't know what to do. No, it is what it is. Like that's just the reality.
I'm from the hood, unfortunately, and my aunt used to carry her little measly 38. And the only reason why I say that is because I remember one time we was going to the airport, and I was like, she was supposed to walk me into the airport. Then she was starting to freak out, like, what's going on? She was like, yo, I'm packing heat. And I was like, well, she didn't say packing heat. She was like, I have something with me. I was like, what? You make it seem like it's cocaine. What do you got? You're slaying. What do you got? You know me like a stupid kid. She's like, why don't you shut the fuck up? I told you. I got a problem now. You want me to confess in front of everybody? Shut up. I'm going to go back to the car. And
to be honest,
unfortunately, she had her pistol, so she couldn't go in.
Probably getting busted with coke at the airport would have gone a lot better for her than getting busted with a 38.
Oh my God.
We still take some of the coke and let her go with the gun. No, you got to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Right. you just offer the TSA a bump and they'll be cool.
Oh my goodness.
I don't recommend that for your viewers, by the way. Do not try to bribe federal officials with drugs. It will probably end very badly.
Are they federal officers? I thought they were like private. It's like some quasi-private federal thing, right?
No,
they're federal.
Are they full federal? All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I remember something they were talking about they really were, but they weren't, and this and that. So, but I'm glad they finally figured it out.
No, they're Homeland Security.
Mm.
Fair enough.
Homeland Insecurity, but
yes, they have yet to actually catch anything.
TSA.
Well,
yes.
They've caught
isn't that the dream? Like we hope we never hear about them catching something because people be too scared to try it.
Right.
Well, no. So
their failures are quiet.
So they've caught. So they've had failures happen in air after it passed through TSA.
No, shoe bomber, the underwear bomber,
and then they update what they're checking. But
so hold on, we're talking about it. Somebody just screamed shoe bomber and some other bomber. You're talking about out of these thousands and thousands of flights, they had 2 slip-ups that got that nothing really even happened. They caught.
Well, no. I'm saying so those 2 failed, but they haven't actually caught anybody in the lead up to they have 0 results.
But
we're like, hey, we've caught this person.
How many bombs have we had in these planes though? We got 0 bombs. I'm saying I think that's either they batting 1,000,
exactly,
or they failing like crazy because I don't see too many bombs.
The two attempts that have happened so far, they've caught neither.
All right,
evidence of absence.
Like, how can there be failures and we have for me, failure for them is like planes
because
blown
the
up.
bombers didn't make their bombs right.
The bomber guys just messed up.
They can't put the right bomb on the plane.
Yeah, but I mean,
they batting 1,000 right now. So,
but like I just like comedians talk about it all the time. But I mean, they are afraid of like your waters and other things being a bomb, and then you throw it into the garbage can right next to them.
Yo, you know what? I'm going to tell you some shit that happened to us, which is some funny motherfucking
Yes.
shit. I'm sitting.
Well, the one
there,
I always loved, like,
we sitting there. We got doing
Yes.
we're doing like high level security. What we think is high level security. You know, we got the whole armed security. We got the whole weapons detail going, and we have the metal detector going. So we think we catching everything. But come to find out, they do quality checks. Like whenever you have metal detectors up, what happens is the organization sends teams, and the teams try to see what they can get through certain metal detectors. It's a way for training purposes too. So they came to us, and these guys got everything fucking through. I'm talking about we didn't catch nothing. We fucking patted down heavy and sending everything through metal detectors twice, and we didn't catch everything. And number one, we didn't catch everything because a lot of it was components. Like people would take guns apart and then like have the components, and then you'd see a component, but you don't know what it is. You're like, all right, that's nothing. Send it through, and the motherfucker put the fucking gun together inside the spot. You know, and there's things like that. You know, there were certain things that we didn't check, and it just really let us know that if there's a will, there's a way. You know, but it's the perception of people feeling that that it's too hard to get through is why I think a lot of these attempts are not even made, because it's just that perception that you'll get caught. But we didn't catch nothing.
It's like Apple security. People think it's impenetrable, but it's really not.
The thing that always killed me, like when we would come back from deployments, and the people would get randomly selected for TSA screenings, and I'm sitting there thinking, mother trucker, I'm carrying a pseudo-automatic weapon in my hands, and you're going to select me for automatic. What? I mean, I only have a humanity degree, but like something about that just doesn't add up to me. I don't know. Maybe one of you more educated guys can explain the math about how this works.
I know, I've learned that if your member is too big, you will get randomly selected for. I actually witnessed this, and the person laughing was the one I witnessed it on. So that was interesting. And the TSA agent will let you know that yes, we saw something bulging, so we decided to take a look.
Well, I got metal in my arm, so every time I go through the stupid machine, they always, there's something in your arm. I'm like, I'm fucking Claw. I'm Ulysses Claw from Black Panther. I'm in my new outfit right now. About to take this motherfucker over.
Like, you ever see that video? You ever see the video of a cop searching a guy, and you know the guy's got his hands pulled behind his back, and the cop's patting him down, and he's kind of grabbing at his pants to checking what's in there, and it's like halfway down the guy's side. He's like, "What's this?" And the guy's like, "It's my penis."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah. He's indignant too. He's like, "How did you not know?" Like and
the cop's like, "Oh God."
But that cop was reaching though. Like he was.
Officer, why are you going up and down?
Right.
Well, it's halfway down the guy's leg though.
Hey, you know what? Some guys hang.
I'm bringing you home to meet the wife.
Dear, guess what I found today? You'd never believe it.
Crazy.
But man, so okay.
Why are you all red?
Like, oh god. So I want to get this back on track. So, in general, most of us agree that most of us agree that folks, yes, should be able to own firearms. Now, how do we create a criteria in which certain people are precluded from that? Should we create a criteria where people are precluded from that? So, for instance, our good old friend Von Helton, the toothless Sorcerer Supreme from Kentucky, who's clearly mentally ill, should he be able to own anything above 9 mil?
I mean, I don't really see the difference between like him carrying a 9 mil and a 45.
Yeah. So let's say if he wanted to have a 45, if the gods told him that he needs to reap some souls in order to fuel his Elder Scrolls, then the capable damage that he could do with one weapon system compared to another would obviously depend on that weapon system. So would it be advantageous so that instead of completely stopping someone mentally ill from having a weapon, we just reduce the effective damage that they could do should they decide to go fucking nuts.
Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of a trench gun?
I've heard of trench guns. I'm not actually sure what it refers to, but I've heard of it.
It's a shotgun. They were called trench guns because in World War I, all you had to do was get in one end of the trench and then just, shoot and rack, shoot and rack, shoot and rack, shoot and rack, reload, shoot and rack, and you would clear out the whole damn trench.
Makes sense.
So when you talk about a mass shooting situation, like we can take Parkland or that nightclub in what was it, Orlando Pulse, I think was the name of it.
Pulse nightclub.
Yeah.
So had the shooter gone in there to either of them, or like Virginia Tech, right? Had the shooter gone in there with a shotgun loaded with buckshot, their body count would have been much higher. But I don't think any of us would have batted an eye at Von Helton owning a shotgun.
I would.
Right.
Yeah, I would have still cared about him owning a shotgun, but it's just. But I don't agree with that argument. The argument that they were inefficient killers, because I know for like the Virginia Tech killer, when they saw his stuff, he was actually they showed him actually practicing shooting dummies on the floor to practice, so maybe you're right. If he would have thought it out, he would have shot a shotgun, or maybe even bombs at the door may have been more simple. Pull the alarm, but. I'm not sure where your argument's going with that.
Your average redneck can clear a classroom with maybe 2 or 3 rounds of buckshot.
Okay.
I guarantee it.
Yeah,
like, nobody bats an eye at it because your average redneck is out clearing deer with a shotgun.
So here's my thing. Here's my question.
Nobody bats an eye at it because your average redneck is out clearing deer.
Oh, somebody's watching. Yeah, somebody's watching on the back end too.
My question is this: why don't we all just everybody have their own personal nukes if we go that route?
Have their own personal what?
Nuclear weapon.
Own personal nuke vets.
Yeah. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. I'm all for it.
For starters, I don't think there's enough fissionable material for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a good idea.
Crazy, right?
Well, everybody gets their own MOAB.
Exactly.
Mother of all bombs, right?
Yes.
But again, how suitable is that for personal defense, right? Because I only have one, and I don't want to blow up the entire city block if I'm trying to keep my family safe.
I mean,
nobody going through my window in the middle of the night.
It'll break into anybody's house if everybody has a mother of all bomb in their house.
Yeah, but I think the Second Amendment argument still is wrapped within, I think, still the past of I need to protect my family from my neighbors and from other people. And I should have the means to protect, because life is what it is. And, if you watch the news every day, you'll see violence is still happening. So as long as that's still happening, I think people are still going to be scared. And I think people are still going to want to own guns. Hey, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I think it's cool. I think you should own a gun. I think if you're responsible, and you should, but I also think there are limits to this, and there are limits to gun ownership. And I think maybe you should even be insured as a gun owner, where if your gun is used to hurt someone else, then you should have this, you should be responsible for that. So
I like the idea of providing insurance for gun owners. For the simple fact of the matter is, like, let's say somebody catches me in the Walmart parking lot, says, "Hey, do you give me your money?" And I decide that situation merits lethal force. Legally, I might be on solid ground, but his family could still decide to sue me. Like, I don't necessarily mind. I wouldn't mind having lawsuit insurance.
Yeah, something like that I think is fair. But I don't know, I feel like we're solving the problem here at the table. But in real life, we hate each other.
When I brought up the point about shotguns, right? It wasn't to illustrate how deadly shotguns were. I just wanted the panel and the audience to appreciate the nuance of the question as to, well, what exactly are we going to restrict, right? Because I guarantee you, in almost every backwoods home in America is a shotgun, because so many backwoodsmen or non-urbanites hunt. Even a lot of urbanites.
Yeah. But let's actually, and I kind of agree with that, but only to a certain extent. Let's actually compare these buckshots to what an actual AK-47 will do, or actual M16. A buckshot is not going to be equally as damaging as somebody going in the classroom with one of those weapons, it's not going to be equally damaging.
Well, I
know we can agree on that.
As somebody who is combat trained on both, having seen what I can do to a target with a shotgun in only 5 rounds versus what I can do to a target with a 5.56 and 30 rounds.
Well, see, once again, you've narrowed that down to even a smaller percentage of Americans because you're talking about you and what you've been trained at. My brother's Navy SEAL. I'm sure he could do it even better. But, I mean, that's less than probably 1% of the American people who actually do something like that.
Well, no,
the majority of the people are not Annie Oakley. They're not.
Emperor, you're gonna lose this argument.
They're not gonna just be that good.
No,
the point I'm trying to make though is that a shotgun you don't necessarily need any accuracy for.
Yeah.
Well, I understand.
5 rounds, and I will rip a target to pieces. 5 or 30 rounds from an AR, I will put an orange-sized, like an apple-sized hole in somebody's chest. Furthermore, 5.56 is such a high-velocity round that is most likely to cause an exit.
What caliber? What are you talking about now?
5.56 or 2.23, depending. It would what would be chambered in an AR, the most prolific rifle in America. Everybody's like favorite bad guy rifle.
Right. But, and we talking about comparing this. We talking about comparing this to what?
A shotgun.
Right.
The average off-the-shelf shotgun.
So more like 12 gauge.
Yeah.
So 12 gauge to a 5.56.
Yep. And that's just me training on a very specific or on a very narrow scenario, right? Like room clearings. When you take your average shotgun owner who goes out, stalks, and shoots deer, a very skittish target that doesn't move. I mean, or that does move, right? It moves very quickly. Imagine what they would do in a classroom where there's only 1 or 2 exits and they've got one of those exits covered. I mean, you will destroy that room, devastate it. Whereas with an AR,
is the most effective weapon.
You would be able to maybe engage every target in the classroom individually, but they're not necessarily guaranteed of a kill. Whereas with a shotgun, you'll engage every target, and it will not be pretty.
Okay, so for inside a classroom, shotgun would be best, but for the concert scenario, AR.
Right, exactly. You're talking about inside a classroom. Okay, for example, that's why I say that's not really a good example to use. For example, let's go to Vegas. The Vegas shooter who shot at the country. What's the country boy from Georgia name?
I forget.
Irv Brooks? I don't know.
Y'all know the country boy. Anyway.
Yeah, but the concert in Vegas.
Who sung the Dirt Road Anthem? He remade Dirt Road Anthem.
That don't narrow it for me, brother. I'm not a country.
I know who it is. Right.
Yeah, y'all know who I'm talking about. Anyway, well, you remember he was up in the Vegas. He was up in the window. And he's shooting down at the crowd.
Shotgun wouldn't work for him.
No, exactly. That's the point I'm making. You're not. You can't compare a shotgun in most scenarios to ARs. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like. I mean, it's just not a real comparison to most events, especially talking about long distance killing or not even long distance. Like I say, like a big open arena area. Shotgun's just not going to do the same.
It's situational too, though. That's what we're talking about.
I guess it is situational. I guess so. Just be situational. Classroom definitely, because the classroom is more closed in. So Bucks, that's what Bucks do.
But if you want to kick 60 people from the 32nd floor, shotguns ain't helping you out. You got to, know.
Let me address something. We're talking about the types of guns we use to kill people.
That's basically what we're talking about.
Well, hold on. What types of guns? Hold on, but what types of guns are not meant to kill people?
No, we basically bringing up this point to see what would be out.
The question was asked: do we need to address the gun culture that we have before we do anything with laws, any limitations? We need to address this gun culture. We need to address this issue where we have to feel safe by having weapons. Because it's not just a gun culture, it's a weapon culture. How many people, before the guns were prolific as it was, will walk around with knives that were used to cut people? We need to
no. I mean, we've talked about the gun culture. I mean, just being realistically, we get where you're coming from that. But just being realistically, I mean, just us talking about the gun culture is not going to change nothing. We might as well just accept the facts that Americans are going to keep their guns, and we might as well just try to narrow down what do we need to have. Addressing the gun culture, it's not like you're going to change the gun culture of this country. We got to speak realistically. People in America, nobody in America is going to say, "Okay, you're right. We need to change our gun culture. It's too much." That's not going to happen. So we might as well forget that.
I know, and I give you that. But also, if we're going to look at the limitations that we have, we need to address the mental health issues as well that go along with.
I agree. I totally agree.
In the end,
I don't think anybody disagrees with you.
Right, exactly.
What we have right now is big shooting happens, always mental illness. When it comes down to fun mental illness, no, it's not a mental illness thing. It's about people that just have guns, and this cycle keeps repeating itself.
Yeah, so what type of mental illness should preclude someone from owning a weapon?
E-Man?
Well, you got my vote for that one.
We're gonna call it
this
the
is
D-Man. If you got the D-Man syndrome, right?
This is the one point on which we will all 100% steadfastly agree.
Yes.
I'm not going to disagree at any point. No, he should never own an actual weapon ever in his life. Matter of fact, not even butter knife.
He don't even need a water gun. He don't even need a water taser.
It's super
No paint guns for him or nothing. Nothing.
Well, listen.
I'm like, you could start off with the easy list of the ones that prevent you from like being able to vote, being able to drive. Like, there's.
Well, listen, guys. This was actually a pretty good debate on the Second Amendment and how we felt. I want to thank Slim Jim, Crimson 60620 for coming out, and hey, my man Baton Mexican.
What happened to Immutable Destiny? He didn't even talk. Did he?
No. I think that was somebody joking with his name. That's what's going on. But yo, so next week, what's the show we're doing next week is what is atheism? That's what we're gonna. So we're gonna do a what is atheism show.
Are you gonna have Steve McRae?
I don't know. Steve
No, we're gonna have some. No, we're gonna have atheists on the show.
But what the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean?
You gotta have the old argument.
No, but it would actually be good because Steve is like he will not let this atheist thing go. Steve would probably be the best person.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like you gotta have the good old MP versus Steve McRae.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool.
I know we'll set something up, but so yeah. So next week we're doing atheism, and then I think do we have anything planned for the week after that?
No, not really.
Think so.
Because I thought we had something thought of, but all right, next week we're going to get back into the God Project and what is atheism, and it's interesting because I've started seeing a lot of interesting videos from Neil deGrasse Tyson and other people about why they don't associate with atheism or what they think it is and all this other stuff. So hopefully next week will be good. Again, thanks to our guests. Don't forget, when's Monty's show coming back out again, guys?
October the 10th, right?
I think it's the 10th.
Oh, cool. October 10th. All right. And I'm going to put, if you guys want to contact these guys, I'm going to put their contact information down in the description bar so you guys can find these guys. But for the guys and for everybody, I got to get out of here. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Sunday is the time. Sunday's the place. And we will see you guys later. Peace.
That's the sound of the police in my hood.